This is part 2 of our 5-part series on the losing strategies that keep you stuck in the same conflicts with your partner. Last episode, we talked about losing strategy number 1, fighting to be right, and how your nervous system thinks winning equals survival, and how that need to be correct destroys connection. Today, we're diving into losing strategy number 2, controlling your partner. And I want to be clear from the start. This is not about everyday dynamics. This is about what you do in conflict, how you try to control the outcome, the process, or your partner's behavior when things get hard. And in the words of Terry Real, who came up with the 5 losing strategies, no one likes being controlled. It leads to retaliation and payback. Before we dive in, I want to tell you about something happening right now. Undefeated, my free 3-day intensive for men who are crushing it at work but struggling at home. If you're listening to this on December 9th, the day the podcast comes out, there's still time to join. You can watch the recording from day 1 and jump in live for the rest. So go ahead and click the link in the show notes to join for free. We're covering the 5 losing strategies, how your nervous system hijacks your connection, and the new model of masculine leadership in relationships. This is for men who are tired of the same fights on repeat and ready to lead with presence instead of survival mode. So, link is in the show notes. Cannot wait to see you tonight. Now let's talk about losing strategy number 2, controlling your partner, and what that looks like. So, controlling your partner can be direct or indirect. Direct control is overt. You're telling your partner what to do, you're telling them how to feel, you're telling them how to behave in conflict. So, this could sound like, you need to calm down right now. Stop crying. Don't raise your voice at me. This conversation is over. Or, here's what we're going to do. You're imposing a solution without any input. You're trying to dictate the terms of the conflict itself. So that's direct control. On the other end, we have indirect control, which is manipulation. This is more covert. You're trying to control the outcome of your partner's behavior without directly saying so. Examples of this are guilt tripping, saying something like, after everything I do for you, this is how you treat me, or using emotional withdrawal as leverage. So there's a difference between withdrawal actually being your losing strategy, and we will get into that in a few weeks, and using withdrawal to hurt your partner, to control them. So this can look like going cold until they back down. Using the silent treatment, withholding communication to control their responses, playing the victim. You're hurting me. How can you do this to me? So you're flipping it around and making it about you. And passive aggressive behavior, saying things like, fine, do whatever you want. I don't care. Trying to get them to change their behavior or back down without directly asking. So the core pattern, whether it's direct or indirect, is that you're trying to control what's happening in the conflict because you feel unsafe when things are out of your control. So what's going on in your nervous system when this is happening? If this is the losing strategy you struggle with, is that control equals safety. Your nervous system likely learned when you were little that if you can control a situation, you can stay safe. So maybe you grew up in a lot of chaos. You learned that controlling things kept you from getting hurt. Or maybe you had a parent whose emotions were really unpredictable. Maybe their behaviors were really unpredictable. So you learned that if I can manage everyone's feelings, if I can kind of control the situation, I'm still safe. Maybe conflict just felt really dangerous. So you learned that if I can slow the pace and control the outcome, I'm going to feel more safe. Or maybe for you, losing control meant completely losing safety. Maybe there were times where things did get out of control and bad things happen. So it's important to remember that these losing strategies I'm going over, they started early on as protective patterns because they did something for you. They were helpful at some point, but now they're hurting your relationship. So let's look at what's happening in your body. Likely you're going into a fight response in your nervous system. So when the conflict starts, and you feel like things start to spin out of control, your nervous system is on red alert and starts to perceive it as a threat. So your body starts to think, okay, if I can control this, I'll be safe. If I can make them stop, the discomfort will go away. If I can dictate the outcome, I won't get hurt. A lot of times my clients report feeling this in their chest, heat in their forehead, in their hands. You start to feel this urgency. It's like an urgency to manage the situation. And you're really not trying to control your partner as a person. You're trying to control the situation so your nervous system can calm down. But the problem is having this need for control is going to activate your partner's nervous system because they feel controlled. And now, what do people do when they feel controlled? Likely fight back, retaliation, or they shut down. They withdraw. I want to give you an example of direct versus indirect control. With direct control, your partner brings something up that's been bothering them. Maybe it's about how you handled something with the kids, a comment you made at dinner, or they're just feeling disconnected from you lately. They want more time with you. A direct control response may sound like, we need to solve this right now. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to stop bringing this up every week. I'm going to be more mindful, and we're moving on. That is a very direct way to control having a conversation with your partner. You decided the solution without asking them for input, and you decided what they have to do. You're like, you have to stop bringing this up. We're not doing this anymore. And you decided when the conversation ends. So that is very overt control, right? It's like, I am dictating the entire aspect of this conversation, of this disagreement that we're having. And the cost of this is your partner's not going to feel heard. They likely won't even feel like they're really your partner. They feel like you just handed them a directive. And maybe they comply and resent you, or maybe they push back and it just gets escalated and you're in a messier fight than you begin with. So you're not really solving a problem with direct control. You're dictating terms, you're expecting them to fall in line, and then one of two things happen. Right? They comply and resent you, they push back, and it gets messier. Now let's talk about indirect control, which is manipulation. Say your partner brings something up that hurt them. An indirect control response may sound like, I can't believe you're bringing this up again. After everything I do for you, after all the ways I show up for this relationship, this is how you treat me? So what just happened? Well, you shifted the focus from their hurt to your hurt. You made them feel guilty for having feelings, and you're trying to manipulate them into backing down. And the cost in this situation is that, one, they either back down and resent you, or they escalate because now they feel manipulated. Either way, you're not addressing the actual issue. You're just trying to hold on to control because deep down, that is what is linked to you feeling safe. And again, it's likely a pattern that started a long, long time ago. The thing about this losing strategy, this need to control, is you may be thinking that you're keeping things from escalating. You're managing the situation. You're protecting yourself. And you may even feel like the stable one. I have been there. I can get very stoic and calm during conflict, as long as I don't blow my window of tolerance. But I realized even in myself that I'm actually trying to manipulate this situation because I'm uncomfortable with adults having feelings because I grew up in a high conflict household and I had some stuff I had to deal with from the way I grew up so that I can have a conversation and I can hold space for my partner to experience emotions. Because what you're actually doing when you try to control the situation is you're making your partner feel like they don't have a voice, you're creating a power imbalance, and you're generating resentment and payback. And it destroys trust. So the truth is you can't control anyone. Not directly, not indirectly. And if you keep trying to do so, it's only going to create more distance, resentment, and even retaliation in your relationship. And remember, control is not leadership. Control is fear, acting out. So the shift, what do we do instead? Well, first we want to recognize when you're in control mode. So ask yourself, am I trying to dictate how this conflict goes because I'm uncomfortable? Am I trying to control their behavior, whether it's their tone, their emotions, their expression, because it's activating me? And am I trying to manage the outcome because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't? If the answer is yes, you're in control mode. So start with yourself. Start with grounding your own nervous system first. Their emotions, their tone, their expressions are not threats to you. When you feel the urge to control, pause. Don't jump into management mode. Take a breath to help signal safety to your body. Ground yourself. Notice your feet on the floor. If you're sitting during the conversation, notice your butt in the chair. If neither of those work for you, I like to do a little bilateral stimulation, just gentle squeezes to the opposite arm. And then remind yourself, I don't need to control this. I just need to stay present. And let them have their own experience. Your partner's allowed to get upset. They're allowed to cry. Yes, they are allowed to raise their voice. There's a difference between someone raising their voice and someone berating and yelling at you. And honestly, it's a difference I had to learn because not everyone has conversations in a very monotoned way. When we feel emotions, the octave of our voice may change, but there is a difference between that happening and someone yelling at you. Your partner's allowed to take time to process. If your partner says they're overwhelmed, give them some space. If your partner says they need a second to think, allow them to think. And allow them to have their own emotional experience. And the biggest thing is, remember, it's not your job to manage your partner. You're not their parent. It's your job to stay present with them. This is hard, and I know, because when you're activated, your nervous system activates. We can feel that fight or flight come on. So it's in grounding ourselves and building our capacity to be with the uncomfortable that we can stay present and actually work through ruptures instead of trying to manipulate the outcome or overtly control the outcome. So we want to collaborate on the outcome. So instead of dictating, this is what happens next, ask them, what do you need from me right now? How can we move forward in a way that works for both of us? What would help you feel heard? You're partnering, not managing. Notice the indirect control. If you're always using guilt, withdrawal, or manipulation to get your partner to back down, stop it. Ask yourself, am I trying to make them feel a certain way so I feel better? If yes, that's manipulation. And over time, it's going to destroy the trust in your relationship. And the question that changes everything. The next time you feel the urge to control the conflict, if you only take one thing away from this podcast, take this. I want you to ask yourself, am I trying to control this because it's helpful or because I'm uncomfortable? And be really honest with yourself. And if it's because you're uncomfortable, that's when you know, I got to do some work on how I show up in conflict in this relationship. So to recap, losing strategy number 2, controlling your partner. Direct control is telling them how to behave, feel, or show up in conflict. Indirect control is manipulation, guilt-tripping, withdrawal, or victim positioning. You do it because your nervous system thinks control equals safety. When things feel out of control, you try to manage the situation to calm yourself down. It's costing you because it leads to retaliation and it leads to payback. And your partner is going to resent being controlled. So let them have their own experience. Ground yourself instead of managing them so that you can collaborate on the outcome. You can work as a team instead of dictating it. And men, reminder, Undefeated's happening right now. Day 2 is tonight. If you're listening to this when it comes out on December 9th, I would love to see you there. This is a free 3-day intensive for men who are done repeating the same patterns and ready to lead their relationships from presence instead of control. The link is in the show notes. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Relationship Growth. If you enjoyed this episode and you're a fan of the show, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you'd like to connect, you can join me over on Substack or follow me on Instagram @LillyRachels. Let's build love that grows.